Let's look for historical buildings and monuments in District 10 today. In the active 10th arrondissement, you'll find unique bridges and free-spirited cafes along Canal Saint-Martin. The streets around Place de la République are filled with trendy bars and restaurants. There are 2 large train stations see millions of travelers pass through every day. The St. Louis Hospital was built during the reign of Henry IV to isolate contagious patients from outside of the world during the plague epidemic that raged in Paris from 1605 to 1606. King Henry IV authorized its constable ruction and its financing by royal decree of May 16, 1607. He decided to name it St. Louis in memory of his ancestor who died of the plague in 1270. The buildings for the contagious patients were separated from the surrounding area by a double walls intercepting all communication with the outside. The new health center was built by a stonemason Claude Belfaux, who is also known for having built the Place des Vosges. The current hospital was built by architects Baldani and Lou Drought in 1986. We are now walking outside the hospital grounds, which are divided by a wall. It's one of the most beautiful examples of brick and stone style buildings, dating from the early 17th century in Paris. The buildings surrounding the beautiful central garden remain in good condition and are of a great interest. The old hospital and its gardens are still in operation today. The hospital is very close to the Canal Saint-Martin, where you can discover nice cafes, restaurants, and other stores nearby. There are benches along the canal, so that this area is crowded with people on a sunny day. The Canal Saint-Martin is 4.5 kilometers long and was opened in 1825 as a project of Emperor Napoleon I. This street is named after Mr. Lancry, former owner of the land on which it was opened from 1776. Many people attracted by the bars and the bicycle paths through the Canal Saint-Martin. People have invested it in masse for about 10 years, making the real estate prices go up. The once working-class district has become very trendy now. As you walk down this street, you will see a building that stands out. This private mansion was built probably in 1777 with a door pediment sculpted with putti and horns of plenty, monogrammed AH. A prolific composer Alexander Piccinni lived at number 18 on this street in the early 19th century. He was accompanist at the Théâtre Feydeau, then at the Opéra Comique from 1802. From 1803 to 1816, he was the official conductor of the Théâtre de la Porte Saint-Martin, and also accompanied in the chapel of King Louis XVIII at the court from 1804 to 1818. The bust of Austrian composer and musician Johann Strauss was donated by the Johann Strauss Society in 1980, which is located in the square along Boulevard Saint-Martin. Boulevard Saint-Martin is located on the border between the 3rd and 10th arrondissements of Paris. The street was created when King Charles V's enclosure was torn down around 1660, and was carved out of the old Saint-Martin redoubt. Before 1851, the grade has been eased many times to improve traffic flow, but the sidewalks remain at their initial level about 2 meters high. A little further down the street, there are the Saint-Martin Gate and the Saint-Denis Gate, which was built in under the name of King Louis XIV to commemorate his victory in the war. The theatre of the Porte Saint-Martin was originally an opera house, built in only 2 months on the orders of Queen Marie Antoinette in 1781. The relocation of the opera house to Place Louvois, and then the French Revolution was occurred, so the theatre was forgotten until the beginning of the 19th century. Destroyed in 1871 during the Battle of the Paris Commune, the theatre was rebuilt in its present form in 1873. Under the influence of two writers Victor Hugo and Alexandre Dumas, the Renaissance theatre was born for the first time in 1837, an Italian-style theatre decorated in the Second Empire style. Once upon a time, when Paris was called Lutetia, the Romans settled and built a paved north-south road axis whose straight line has been preserved until today. In 1674, the Saint Martin Gate was erected across the Faubourg Saint-Martin Street, which is ancient road axis by architect Pierre Bullet, in honor of the victories of Louis XIV on the Rhine and in Franche-Comté. Forming a perfect square of 18 meters on each side, this triumphal arch was built in stone covered with vermiculated bosses. 4 spandrels are represented allegories of victories in bas-reliefs. King Louis XIV decided to erect a triumphal arch in honor of his victories on the Rhine and in Franche-Comté at the Porte Saint-Denis. This new gate was built in 1672 a little further north of the old medieval postern. The Saint-Denis Gate was designed by François Blondel. It's his only surviving work in Paris. Inscribed in a perfect square of 23 meters on each side, this gate was sculpted by François Girardin. The Saint Martin Gate, which Elle mentioned earlier, is a second triumphal arch. It was erected near the Saint-Denis Gate in 1674. The Saint-Denis Gate delimit Paris from its suburbs. Since then, the city has grown, but the street has kept its outside-the-walls personality, a sort of exotic working-class area. The current building was built between 1901 and 1902 by architect Édouard Fournier. It was decorated in the Art Nouveau style, which was popular at that time. Also, many movies have been filmed in this restaurant. The street was opened in 1772, on a piece of land belonging to the Filles Dieu called Fief de l'Echiquier. There was a Parisian cabaret called the Concert Mail, which was located at number 10 on this street. But now it's no longer there. Originally, it was opened by Valentin Fournier under the name Concert Parisien, on the site of the former Filles Dieu monastery. The place became then an important performance venue for artists at that period. The Rue de Hauteville starts on Boulevard de Bonne Nouvelle and ends on Place Franz Liszt. It measures 773 meters. This street was built between 1772 and 1792. This street is named after Jean-Baptiste de la Macaudière, Count of Hauteville, who was provost of the merchants of Paris from 1772 to 1777. The Hôtel de Bourrienne was built in 1787 for Marie-Anne Ségard Prépanier de Bazin. After that, this small mansion was acquired in 1792 by Mr. Lormier Legrave. His daughter, Fortunée Hamelin, called Madame Hamelin, lived there and had it decorated. This mansion preserves a unique set of painted decorations of Directoire style. At the end of this street, you'll see the St. Vincent de Paul Church, which is an imposing building towering Place Franz Liszt. The first stone of the church was placed in 1824. However, the economic crisis of 1826 and the Revolution of 1830 brought the work to a halt. Then, in 1832, the project passed into the hands of Hittorf, who remodeled the church in his own unique way. Let's get close to the church. The St. Vincent de Paul Church is a neoclassical style with magnificent interior decorations. This church is the work of Jacques-Ignace Hittorf. Actually, his father-in-law drew the initial plans, but Hittorf took over the work and made revisions to give it its final appearance. The church was inaugurated in 1844. The facade is reminiscent of a Greek temple, and the 12 Ionic columns represent the 12 apostles. Hittorf was inspired by both Greek temples and Roman basilicas. This street owes its name to the St. Vincent de Paul Church where it ends. The Lariboisière Hospital was built in the 19th century according to hygienic theories. Construction began in 1846, but was not completed until 1854. It's based on a design by architect Pierre Gautier. This hospital was named after Countess Lariboisière, who died in 1851 and donated most of her fortune to the construction of the new hospital. The street was opened on the former Clos Saint-Lazare by royal decree of January 31, 1827. The Boulevard de Magenta is located in the 9th and 10th arrondissements of Paris. The construction of the Boulevard de Magenta was part of a major remodeling project of Paris undertaken by Georges Haussmann, in the mid-19th century during the reign of Napoleon III. The street name comes from the Battle of Magenta, won by Napoleon III on June 4, 1859, against Austrian troops in Lombardy during his Italian expedition. The boulevard here follows the route of the old Rue du Nord, which was subdivided in 1827. The history of this church dates back to the 6th century. At that time, there were a church, a monastery, and a market garden on this site. After being destroyed by the Norman invaders, the church was rebuilt in the 12th century and became a parish in 1180. The most part of this church was built between 15th and 16th centuries except its old bell tower, in flamboyant Gothic style recognized by the exuberance of the ornaments. The church was not really completed until the 17th century. It's about time to finish today. Have a great day. See you soon.